The time has come. We're finally going to talk about Grave of the Fireflies. For those of you who don't know, this film came out back on April 16th, 1988. I've always wondered why this film is so incredibly painful to watch. I mean, why is it so unbearably heavy? You wouldn't be wrong to say that it's almost unique in its ability to tear out the audience's heart. So today, I want to dig into some of the secrets behind this one-of-a-kind anime. Yeah, we're going to have a look at director Isao Takahata's face as we talk about its emotional impact. In general, the comparative emotional impact of director Hayao Miyazaki's films are actually easier to understand, wouldn't you say? Maybe it's because you really love a character, or maybe a specific line deeply resonated with you. Those kinds of things happen quite often in Miyazaki's works, but with Takahata's films, you may feel moved to your core, yet not quite understand the reason why. So you end up flailing and reaching for words that aren't quite right just to try and explain your feelings. You might say, "Oh, it's just so sad." I think the defining characteristic of Takahata's work is his ability to replace complex emotions through simple words. Today, I want to try to explain the reason why his films can be so challenging to put into words. Let's put director Takahata's picture to the side for now. I want to begin by talking about what kind of story everyone thinks Grave of the Fireflies is. You can find a brief summary of the film on Nippon TV's official website. On the night of September 21st, 1945, Seita takes his last breath at Sanomiya Station in Kobe. His only possession is a candy tin. While clearing away his body, a station attendant throws the tin aside and small bone fragments spill out of it. Then fireflies, outside of their typical season, suddenly flutter out onto the grass field. On June 9th, around 3 months earlier, Kobe was devastated by a massive air raid. Due to his mother's heart condition, Seita had her evacuate ahead of him. Soon after, he followed with his very young little sister, Setsuko. Later, when Seita arrives at the designated evacuation site, a local school, he finds his mother in critical condition. Shortly after that, she tragically passed away. Following the events of the evacuation, Seita took his sister, Setsuko, to live with some relatives in nearby Nishinomiya. However, little by little, the aunt who is caring for them began to throw harsh words at them. She constantly scolds them and fails to provide them with proper meals. Seita and Setsuko were unable to put up with it any longer, so Seita decided that they should leave. He and Setsuko moved together hand in hand into a small cave next to a pond. That's where they start living. This is the basic plot of the film Grave of the Fireflies. That is what Nippon TV has written, but after the point Nippon TV leaves off, the air raids of Kobe continue and people's hearts gradually grow colder. Seita becomes unable to provide food for Setsuko. Because of that, Setsuko becomes weak. Eventually she dies due to malnutrition. Then Seita cremates her body alone. But then, after her cremation, Seita himself dies at a train station in Kobe. This is essentially the full narrative. Interestingly, about half of viewers only remember this rough storyline. There's a surprisingly large amount of viewers that don't remember the final scene. The final scene shows the city of Kobe. It looks like this. Seita and the sleeping Setsuko are sitting together on a bench, and Seita alone is looking over the city. Yes, there's this scene of him looking down at the high rises of Kobe. I think that this scene is absolutely fundamental to the entire film, but surprisingly, a lot of people don't remember it. In other words, there are a lot of people who do not understand the meaning of this scene. Most of them think that at the end of the movie, Setsuko's spirit comes to meet Seita's, so the two of them go hand in hand to rest in eternal peace together. That maybe it's a message that the present city of Kobe has yet to rest in peace, or perhaps that it's watching us. That's genuinely what they think. The other half of viewers are interpreting it as such. So what I meant was that there are some people who think, oh, those two are still looking down at the city of Kobe even now as spirits. But then the remaining viewers do not actually think about it that deeply. So in that sense, it's not exactly paranormal, but we could say that it's a scary movie. And I think that ending the movie with this scene is what makes it a truly amazing film. Today, however, I'm not going to be talking about this general interpretation of the story, but instead, I'll be diving into much more detail. First, let's start from the very beginning. I won't cover every single frame of the film, but I will be explaining the opening sequence step by step, scene by scene. First, the film begins in complete darkness. The ghost of Seita appears staring directly into the camera. It's the night of September 21st, 1945. Seita says, "I died," in the Kobe dialect. Seita's ghost watches and he sees his own dying body below him. As the ghost of Seita continues to look down, he sees his nearly lifeless self. The dying Seita is still continuing to breathe for now. But eventually, we can see that he collapses completely. And then a station attendant arrives, confirming the death of Seita. He says, this one's a goner too. While the station attendant is searching the body for any valuables, he discovers a tin box inside Seita's pocket. He has no idea what this tin box is, so he casually tosses the tin away. As the discarded tin hits the ground, it opens, revealing small bones. Then, fireflies, outside of their expected season, emerge out onto the scene. From within the swarm of fireflies, a small girl emerges. The girl is Seita's younger sister, Setsuko. She slowly stands up, sees her older brother's lifeless body and instinctively runs towards it. But just as she starts to step forward, something stops her. She turns around and sees her brother, but now he appears gentle and alive as he once was. The siblings hold hands and they walk calmly together from the right side of the screen to the left. Taking their place, the title "Grave of the Fireflies" appears on the screen. Are you in tears yet? Yeah, me too. I know, it's incredible. This is enough to make anyone cry. That's basically how this opening sequence unfolds. If you watch closely, I've explained it rather simply, but if you pay close attention here, there are some details that are hidden. The hidden part is not so obvious. I'm talking about this particular moment. The scene where Seita's spirit watches his own self, still alive but at death's door. This scene contains a huge secret. Let me tell you what exactly that secret is. To be able to truly understand it, we need to analyze each individual shot even more closely. Let's start here. Seita announces September 21st, 1945. That was the night I died. Then, he looks down to the right. His gaze shifts to the lower right side of the screen. At that moment, a pillar appears and something else seems to appear in the foreground along with it. Can you see it? And maybe it'll be clearer if I zoom in a bit. There's clearly a pillar, and in front of it something mysterious briefly appears and then fades away. Immediately following that, the nearly lifeless Seita fades into view, merging into this scene with the pillar. What exactly is going on here? This, in fact, leads us right into the third scene. Here is an enhanced version of the image, so you guys can see it better. And actually, if you look really carefully right in front of this pillar here, before Seita's dead body even appears on screen, this right here, we see something else. See this curvature? That's definitely not pre-war. Maybe it wasn't obvious, but this is in fact an ashtray. You might be wondering, what's so special about this ashtray? The special thing about this is the design. This is an ashtray from the 80s. Once I noticed this, I was like, oh, wow, okay, and felt like it made sense to me. You see, Seita has already died here, but he lives on, so this is almost like an afterlife. To this day, Seita's spirit still lives. This film came out in 1988, so in that year when Seita goes back there, he remembers what happened and he's taken right back to that moment in the past, all the way from the year 1988. You know, he's still there, he still remembers what happened, he's still suffering, and I started wondering, was this intentional? Just to double check, I went to my Blu-ray copy, and there they were actually location shots from all the way from Kobe. If you take a look at these shots, you can see the same exact ashtray right next to a pillar. What's more, this is a different pillar. They used those as a reference and moved the ashtray next to them. But here's the interesting part. It wasn't originally by this particular pillar. They moved this modern ashtray here specifically for this shot. We can tell because this pillar is not quite the right shape. It is different. As you can see from the location photos, location scouting took place in 1987. What they are doing is that they purposely refer to an image of a modern-day ashtray in their film. To put it another way, Grave of the Fireflies is not a movie set in the past. The movie literally starts in the present. Everyone thinks that we only return to the present in the last scene, but that is actually not the case. It did not start from the past. We're in the modern era right from the very beginning, and it shows Seita's spirit has been suspended at Sanomiya Station this whole time. So this movie is trying to tell you guys that he's been suffering all these years, replaying his final moments over and over. Now you might be wondering how he ended up like this. Well, just like everyone thought, he's essentially become a spirit that can't move on. He's bound there by trauma. I mean, usually bound spirits stay in one place. But we do see Seita take the train and move around, so that's one distinction anyway. The purpose of this film is to explain why Seita became stuck and remained that way. Why is he still replaying the worst and most painful moments of his life 43 years after his death? This film was constructed specifically to answer that question. Understanding this structure completely changes the way you watch this movie. This is not a pathetic story or anything like that, but rather it is a story of why he has been suffering so much for 43 years and why he's been cursed to replay these memories all this time. It's a mystery centering that question. You know, I think director Isao Takahata probably thought he made that part pretty clear. Well, I showed the ashtray at the beginning, didn't I? And that's true, he did. I wasn't sure when I watched the film at first. I had a sneaking suspicion, and so I went back to check the film again. I thought, if we see the modern day at the end of the film, then maybe they are also showing those at the beginning too. Takahata probably assumed everyone would get it, but honestly, it's so subtle. There's no way most people would notice, isn't it? 0 people mentioned this on Twitter after it aired during a Friday roadshow. How would they know? They apparently couldn't. I mean, it is true, and it's easy to miss moments like this in Grave of the Fireflies if you're not paying close attention. We tend to watch films that deal with this topic with a certain set of preconceived notions. We assume it's just another pathetic story, or we assume that someone was too closed off or that someone was cruel. It is easy to miss things when you watch like that.